Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll. And today we are going to talk about some love, death, and robots. Now, if you haven't seen Love, Death, and Robots, this is going to be some partial spoilers and whatnot. So, um, if you haven't watched it at all, maybe you want to turn back. I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible, but this is really more of a reaction video. Um, the first the first season, me and my wife got lucky. We kind of stumbled upon it like right when it was released, so we were the first of any of our friends to see it, and it blew our minds. Almost every episode was a hit, and we were just telling everybody that we could tell. I mean, they're all between like 8 minutes, and I think the longest was like 20 minutes, something like that. But the graphics were on another level, and the storytelling was really interesting. Kind of made you think of Black Mirror in a way. Just kind of that this dark. A lot of them had this kind of dark vibe to them. But the main thing was like the visual style of these and some of the best graphics you'll ever see. And then they came out season two, and it was kind of this hit or miss um, with them. It was kind of like a 50-50. So a lot of people have been waiting for season three to come out and kind of see, okay, now are we going back to season one, are we going to kind of waffle and fall into a subpar show? So we we watched it, and we were going to try and space it out over a couple of days, but I think there's only 6 episodes. Um, I don't know, 6 or 9 episodes, I think. Yeah. Um, and we just couldn't help ourselves. We just rolled right through them all in a row because a lot of them were on the 10-minute scale, somewhere around there. Um, but let's go ahead and kind of get into it a little bit. The first episode kind of brings us back to an old favorite with the three robots, and it's called Three Robots Exit Strategy. And the robots are kind of going through the post-apocalyptic world again, and kind of making fun of humans for, you know, like what we thought we were gonna be able to survive. Like they were like making fun of survivalists, and then making fun of the government people for hiding in mountains, and then spoiler, at the end they find out that we all went to Mars. And then the big reveal was like when you get to see the one space person that you do see that's sitting on Mars, like getting ready to drink a drink, the face mask comes up, and it's the cat from the original. And he's like, "Who did you think? You think was going to be Elon Musk?" And so that was kind of, I don't, to me, I think it was kind of like a fan service episode. They're like, the fans love the robots. Let's give it to them and give them the gag. Um, then the next one was Bad Traveling, and this is kind of like a set in like the pirate times. And wow, the visuals on this were stunning. I mean, not not like super realistic, but they were just so smooth. Um, you know, and you have this giant crab, and at first you think it's just a crab killing everybody on the ship, and then it ends up being this kind of sentient, almost alien-like creature that demands to go to this island that's inhabited, and you kind of get in this more morally gray area where you the main guy, the main character, you think, oh well, he seems kind of kind of like a dick, and killing people, and and stuff. But then, kind of in the end, you see that he was the only one that didn't want to sacrifice all the people on the island for himself. So it's all like, well, okay, he killed all the people on board, but he saved all the people on the island. So um, I really love those type of stories where it's kind of like, okay, you got to make a bad choice to not make a worse choice. And that's kind of what that whole story was about, and kind of turning it, you know, kind of twisting it on you there at the end. And then the next one was the very pulse of the machine, and this is kind of an artsy, trippy style, anime, comic book style visuals with this. But I mean, it was it was a pretty strange one, which kind of made you. Um, it's kind of one of those shows or movies or whatever where you're kind of trying to understand is what this person's seen really happening. It's one of those, um, and she's having this choice like, oh, okay, she's got to get back to her ship. She had crashed her little rover because she pushed it too hard, and then her friend dies, and then she thinks her friend's talking to her while she's dragging her through this moon of Jupiter. And yeah, the ending where she thinks she's talking to the planet and everything. I mean, it was pretty good. I mean, to me, on the scales, it's middle of the road, but still for Love, Death and Robots, that's pretty good. And then you have The Night of the Many Dead, which is just this weird stylized, uh, quick zombie apocalypse where it almost looks like The Sims. It looks like a really good graphics version of The Sims where you're hovering over it, and it's zombie apocalypse is going all over the world. And it was just a fun thing to kind of laugh at. It almost felt like kind of like an intermission through it, and then but it was enjoyable. Um, and then the next one was Team Kill Team, which I think was the weakest. Um, Probably the weakest or second weakest of the season, and really it's just a kind of your vulgar shoot 'em up, um, kind of stylized, almost American anime, the way they looked at it, and a lot of the stuff was just goofy to be goofy, and vulgar to be vulgar, which I normally don't like it, because in the shortened episodes the way they are, there's just not enough time for you to build up anything to appreciate people being vulgar to be vulgar and stuff like that. If you have more time, you can kind of get to know characters and stuff like that, but it just didn't hit for me. And then you have Swarm, which is one of the best episodes I've ever seen. I mean, the visuals were just stunning. The story behind where I don't know how far into the future this is, but humans are interacting with all kinds of different species, and there's this swarm of kind of like self-sustained, almost like bug-like creatures, and they just absorb different, uh, different alien species from around the galaxy into themselves, and like people think that they don't have a mind. They're not really conscious. They're just doing whatever needs to be done to survive. Um, and of course, there's a doctor who's been studying them and just doesn't want to bother them. Just wants to learn from them. And then you get another guy who's like kind of looks like he's some form of politician that was dropped off by another alien species in him. And then, of course, he's trying to figure out a way to weaponize it or, overtake, clone it all. And of course, it all goes wrong. And then, you know, we end up being one of the species that they're absorbing. And this one would make for a great like miniseries or series. It seemed like a pilot episode to me, and just fantastic. And then after that was Mason's Rats, which was one of the funnest ones of the funnest ones. I mean, you've got this old farmer who's figures out he has this rat problem, and then he figures out that the rats have been making weapons and stuff, and he calls in an exterminator, and this exterminator, of course, he's like Wile E. Coyote. He's over the top. He's got all this, laser beams and this and that, and they end up like taking out the sentry guns. And then the guy comes back and he's got like this like scorpion with Gatling guns and all this. It's just murdering these rats. And I think that Joe Abercrombie did some writing for this, maybe. That's what I've heard, but it was just, I mean, gore fest everywhere. And then right when the the scorpion killing machine is about to finish off the rats, that you see them trying to save one of the warrior rats is trying to save the other, and the owner comes over and shoots the thing, and then they become like friends, and then he figures out that the rats were distilling whiskey or something, and then that's what he starts making. So I mean, that was just a fun ride. And then you have In Vaulted Halls, Entombed. And this one is, they always do, it seems like they do like one episode where they have like famous people in the episode. Now, this is all CGI, and this is like really, really good CGI. But you had like Joe Magliano, and then you had the guy who played Captain Boomerang. I don't remember his name. And then the girl from Walking Dead, Rodriguez. Those were like the three main characters. And there was like a handful, and they're going into this tomb to rescue this other soldier, and they find him dead. And then it's kind of like a platformer where they're shooting their way deeper and deeper into the cave system, and then at the end of it, they end up finding like a Cthulhu monster demon thing that's being held by these runes and everything. And uh, I mean, it was okay. It was kind of interesting to see, but the, it wasn't anything to be invested in. And like I said, not enough time for them to do. It's like they wanted to be really ambitious, but there just wasn't enough time. And then the last one is, if I can pronounce it right, it's like uh, Jibarro, one of the best like shorts or episodes of all time, maybe the best. I mean, it's basically, and we didn't actually read the the episode detail or description when we went into watching it, so we weren't exactly sure what was happening at the start of this. But I mean, there's this woman that comes up out of the water, and she's covered in gold and chains and everything, and dancing around. And then she starts like and there was, and like it looks like these knights or um, Spanish. They kind of looked like they were in old 1600s Spanish armor. And then she starts screaming and dancing, and they all start running towards her into this lake, and they're swinging their swords, cutting each other down, and they all start floating to the bottom because of their armor. And then you have the one knight that's just kind of standing there and not understanding what's going on. And then she's like looking at him like, "Why aren't you coming to me?" And then we're like, "Oh, he's deaf." And I mean, and then there was this dynamic where he's trying to run, and he gets away, but then she follows him through the river. And then there's this like thing like are they falling in love? Like she sleeps with him. He passed out, and she like snuggles up, spoons him, and then like he wakes up and he freaks out and runs away, and she kind of follows him, and then he ends up like, they end up kind of like making out, but then like she cuts his mouth because her lips are covered in like rubies or something. And then he like headbutts her and knocks her unconscious and starts ripping all the gold stuff off her, but it's like hurting her because it's like stuck to her skin. and he kind of throws her back into the water and like leaves her for dead, and takes off with all the gold and stuff, and then something he ends up back at the lake, and I forget exactly what happened, but somehow he hits his head or something, and then he can hear again, and her and then she wakes up and she's doesn't have any of her golden stuff, and then she calls to him, and because he can now hear, he's susceptible to her again. I mean, that was just amazing storytelling and an amazing just show of CGI mastery. Um, but Overall, this season is right up there, rivaling the first season, way better than the second season. So let me know in the comments below what you thought about Love, Death, and Robots. Have you watched it all? How did you like it? What was your favorite episode? And don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And I will see you in the next one.